Welcome. My name's Chris Davis. I am a certified ketogenic carnivore coach, and today I thought I'd make a video of my own kind of animal-based versus plant-based showdown. Different information that's out there that I don't feel is correct or has been proven to be incorrect, and information that's skewed at best. So here we go. The first thing I want to go over is protein intake. First, we need to understand what they consider, the American Diabetes Association, the American Heart Association, these different individuals, and what's recommended for protein intake before we start into animal-based protein and plant-based protein. So the daily recommended, which honestly I think the daily recommendeds are horrible. I don't think they're innately accurate in any measurement. It's what we have and what we've been using. According to this chart, right, I'm 51 years old, so I should be intaking about 46 grams of protein per day. That is wow, so low. I believe and understand, and the way I've been eating for the last 13 years, that my body does better on so much more than that. I decided, well, we have this thing called technology, right? Everybody's got a computer in their pocket. It's called their cell phone. So I pulled up a protein calculator. You put in your information. I'm a 51-year-old female, 5'5", 150, and highly active. I exercise every day. So American Diabetic Association, right, they recommend anywhere from 68 to 122 grams of protein, which is a little bit better than the chart that I was looking at, but again, it's still pretty low. So what am I intaking for protein? Well, honestly, I don't generally count my proteins, fats, and carbs. I thought, well, I have an app on my phone, why not? I'll look at a typical day, and honestly, right now I'm eating 2 meals a day. I eat breakfast in the morning after my workout, and then I eat dinner usually between 4 and 5 o'clock at night. So looking at what I intake, you can see my protein is about 211 grams per day. So about 30% of my nutrition comes from protein. Twice as much as what the ADA is recommending that I intake. So I am thriving. I don't have any kidney issues, which honestly, it's estimated 80% of kidney stones are from oxalate poisoning, which oxalates are found in plants. So I am not overly concerned about this, and I wish the ADA would get up to speed and look at the research about daily protein intake. When people look at protein, right, hopefully, maybe not. Hopefully they're thinking amino acids. Amino acids are molecules used by all living things to make proteins, right? And so for us, there's about 20 different amino acids that we need, and then there are 9 that are considered essential amino acids, right? And essential amino acids must be from the food that you eat. The Cleveland Clinic does give a couple of options, right? Beef, eggs, and dairy. I don't consume dairy, but every day I have cow and eggs. So what do amino acids do? Well, they have quite a few functions, right? If you look at this chart, I found this on clevelandclinic.org, and I really liked it, so I snagged it. Thank you, Cleveland Clinic. But a couple things that it does, right? It builds muscle, which most people know, provides an energy source, right? Grow and repair body tissue, makes hormones and brain chemicals, right? That's essential. There are amino acids that are better than others, right? So we have what we call complete, and that means that each of these contains all 9 essential amino acids on the left. On the right, the incomplete means that they are missing 1 or more of the 9 amino acids. So the argument that's typically made is, yeah, but if you eat these incompletes in combination with each other, then you get a complete protein. My argument is, why not just eat cow? Like, I can have an 18-ounce steak and be good for 20, 25 hours. I don't feel the need to eat anything else. I'm totally satiated and I have all the nutrients I need. Why would I take, say, rice and beans, slap them together, have 2 cups, and have all that bloating and that uncomfortable situation going on in my gut when I can just eat cow? So then you got to consider protein quality. So how easily your body can digest the protein. Animal proteins are more easily digested than plant proteins. I believe that it's because our small intestines is 3 times longer than our large intestines, right? And animal products break down in the small intestines and plant products break down in the large intestine. So we're more adept at breaking down animal proteins. So then I found this chart. I always find it interesting because one of the downsides that they show for animal protein is that it can be high in fat. Like if you saw in that other chart, my fat consumption right now is 63%. Fat does not make you fat. Saturated fat does not give you heart disease. That was dispelled like 75 years ago. But they keep pushing it. That, oh God, you're having too much fat in your diet. But then they also look in plant protein. It says, well, it has other nutrients. Cow has all the nutrients I need. So why wouldn't I just eat cow? So moving on, I found another chart that I really want to explain because to me, this is one of the methods that the plant-based community uses to send, I don't want to say subliminal messages, but definitely encoded messages, right? So just the heading of it, right, talking about plant foods are a fantastic source of protein without the added drawbacks of meat. Right, so that automatically tells you this is not created by a carnivore, right, for sure, because the added drawbacks aren't exactly drawbacks. So a couple other things they do, right? Plant protein, it's green. Now, granted, plants are green. Animal proteins are red. Well, what do we associate green and red with? Green is good, red is bad, right? Why didn't they do, I don't know, purple and yellow, right? They chose green and red. Then when they talk about plant protein, they talk about the advantages of it. But when they talk about animal protein, they talk about the disadvantages of it. Do you see the setup there? Right? They're misleading and trying to get you to think a certain way. So let's go over these real quick. And I am going to get more into cholesterol. Animal proteins, disadvantages, right? Cholesterol, dietary cholesterol does not change cholesterol. The liver uses carbs and fatty acids, which we'll go over to make cholesterol. Saturated fat, again, they already disproved back in the 1940s, 50s that saturated fat does not cause heart disease, and eating fat doesn't make you fat, right? No fiber. Who gives a shit? You don't need fiber. There is zero requirement for fiber in a diet. Higher in calories. Who cares, right? It's the nutrients in the food that is the concern. Because if I have lunch, I'm well over 3,000 calories a day. And I've been the same weight, the same size. I don't get sore. I don't get tired when I work out. So who cares that I'm intaking 3,000 calories a day? Whoopie-doo. Okay. But then they talk about the advantages of plant protein. Fiber. Again, who cares? Phytonutrients. Most of those are not bioavailable, right? You're more concerned or should be more concerned with the anti-nutrients and the oxalates that are in your plant food. Vitamins and minerals. Again, I can get all of it from cow. Low or healthy fat profile. Again, saturated fat is not the issue. And then no cholesterol. Well, I hate to tell you, spoiler alert, you need cholesterol. So one last thing on this chart that is highly misleading, right, is this box right here talks about eating whole plant foods, right, that it lowers the risk of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and promotes overall health. That has not been proven, right? Every article that I found, every research article that I found that compares plant-based to quote-unquote meat eaters, they're not actually meat eaters, right? They're not like me, where I am 97% animal products. They are people on the standard American shit diet. So yeah, a plant-based way of eating, whether it's vegetarian or vegan, could potentially look better than someone that's on a standard American diet that drinks and smokes. Understand the nuances that go on when people put things together. So dietary cholesterol, is it friend or is it foe? The liver produces cholesterol through de novo lipogenesis. It's a complex process, right? I'm not going to try to explain it in this video. I'm sure there's some doctor out there that smarty pantses it just to the walls and let them. But it converts excess carbs and proteins into fatty acids and then into cholesterol. Blood cholesterol levels are mostly determined by the amounts of fats and carbs in the diet, not by dietary cholesterol. So I choose to have saturated fat. One of the things that's great about our bodies is it is a miracle, right? God made us a miracle. So our body closely regulates how much cholesterol we have. And so it converts it when it needs it and it doesn't when it doesn't need to. And so it maintains this homeostasis status, trying to regulate how much blood cholesterol we actually have, which again, we are a damn miracle. We do need cholesterol though, right? We need it for our adrenal glands, right? To produce different hormones. Our sex organs, right? Our kidneys need it for producing vitamin D when the skin's exposed to sunlight, right? Even though they keep telling us not to have too much vitamin D, which is another load of horseshit. I have like 15,000 units a day and my vitamin D is still pretty low. And it plays a crucial role in the brain, right? So they did a study on centenarians and they followed them over, I can't remember, it was like X amount of years, a ridiculous number of years. And so centenarians are people that are 100 or older. And what they realized or discovered was that they had high cholesterol and they had low glucose. So what does that mean? That means that they were ketogenic, right? Maybe carnivore. I don't know. It didn't really describe what the nutrition was explicitly, but it is one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, so high cholesterol and low glucose, that's ketogenic, if not carnivore. I thought, how can I help people understand what they need to look at? So I'm showing you my lab results from January 9th of this year. And what I find fascinating, again, they're using the red and green colors. Total cholesterol used to be okay at 300, right? Then it was 200. Now they want it under 150. Right? But that's not the concern. The LDL of 103 is not the concern, right? What you should be looking at is your triglyceride to HDL ratio. That should be under 2. Okay, now my HDL is 89, which supposedly shouldn't be possible with the way that I'm eating because, oh my God, I'm not getting those valuable plants in there. But my ratio is 0.69. So I am at a very low potential to have a heart attack. Not to mention my CAC score is 0, but I kept digging, kept looking, and I came across this chart that I just really have to go into. Again, you have to look at how it's put together. So it's advantages of protein transition for all. Right? And there's a rumor out there, I don't know if it's proven or not, but there is a vegan order somewhere that they want to try to get the entire world population plant-based. Really? You're trying to kill people. Because if you take supplementation out of the scope, you take the protein shakes and the different supplements and this bomb and that bar and all this bullshit out, and you're killing people with a plant-based diet. Right? I look at the world of, I don't need to supplement. Right? Now, granted, during the winter, my husband tries to get me to take vitamin D because we live in Idaho at 6,000 feet and I work in a damn office every day. But I'm horrible about taking it. So, it is what it is. So they have the negative impacts of animal farming and the positive benefits of plant proteins. So they're already setting it up of where they're at. They're obviously vegetarian or vegan. Right, obviously based off of this and the fact that this information is not even accurate, which is always humorous to say the least. So a couple of them that I thought I would pull out. The first one, right, they were talking about the animals that are killed per year, right? So on the plant-based news website, I found this where they talk about vegans don't realize billions of animals are killed growing crops, says farmer, right? And a lot of them won't admit it. Right? They flat out believe that nothing dies for them to eat. Spoiler alert, something dies for all of us to eat, regardless of what nutrition system you're on. So the article was quoted as saying, and this is what I find fascinating, is this is the logic that they use, right? is only 55% of the world crop calories feed humans, while 36 are given to livestock. So that's the justification. Like, it's okay because you animal eaters, you kill the animal that you're eating and all these other animals die. We have a grass-fed, grass-finished cow being raised right now, and I'll save all the chickens and pigs and fish that are killed, and I will kill one cow, and that will feed us for an entire year. Another quote that they had, right, they did acknowledge, right, that harvesting and maintaining, it does kill wildlife, right? And they give the whole long list. And I am one of those unfortunate people that had the shit scared out of me, bucking hay bales and snake remnants scared the living bejesus out of me. So I know for a fact that animals die. And it talks about, that some are killed unintentionally by tractors, some are poisoned, right? Fertilizers and pesticides, they run into the water bodies and they can kill fish. So at least these people are admitting that things die for them to eat. So good on them for that. It's not what it seems to be, because for one, they can't even estimate or guesstimate how many animals die in plant production, right? And they actually don't even know how many animals, cows in particular, are eating the crops, the grass that's grown for them, right? Because, for example, I know it's way reduced here because the cattle are up in the hills half the year eating the wild grass that grows between the sagebrush. And then when they're not there and during the winter, because it gets butt-ass cold here, -40, they bring them into the fields and they'll feed them grass. It depends how you're calculating it. Are you calculating per cow per day for an entire year? Then you're way off. Mine is being grass finished. And so it's not getting the wheat, corn, and soy mix to bulk it up prior to slaughter. So the details matter. And I think a lot of times people don't want to hear the details because they want to spin this narrative of, oh, these awful cows. So what I've seen as far as what they talk about, right, the biodiversity loss, what I think is a bigger issue, because what they have shown, honestly, is that where cows graze, more animals are. So it doesn't lose biodiversity because you're raising cattle, right? For example, on the back hill here at our house, the cows, every damn year they come down. We don't have a fence yet, so they're in the yard. But you know what? They're in with a herd of deer, right? We have pack rats and we have skunks, unfortunately, and different animals. And they're all living together. So that's a bunch of crap. But what I think is the biggest problem, what I've seen around where I live, is the monocropping versus the regenerative agriculture, right? So monocropping is they just make the same crop year after year after year after year, and they're just depleting it of its nutrients, right? They're not doing like regenerative farming where, one, they're flipping the crops, so they're doing something different. But what we also do here is they, like I said, in the winter, the cattle are in their field where the crops are grown. They're pissing and shitting all over the place, fertilizing the land, putting the nutrients back into the soil, and therefore keeping the land more fertile. So the whole notion that we got to get rid of the cows because, one, they're killing the planet, and two, they're destroying crops, they're not, right? And where a lot of them are roaming, like I said, behind my house, it's sagebrush, it's hills. There's no ability to grow crops there. So why not just let the cows roam over it? And that's what they're doing. And the problem is they're counting that as unusable farmland. No shit. You're not growing anything with them rocks up there. Next one is, it's a driver, right? Animal protein. It's a driver of heart disease and obesity. Again, that was already disproven. And I'm sorry, saturated fat doesn't make you fat, right? What makes you fat? Overconsumption of carbohydrates, lack of movement, seed oils, right? Having a sedentary life. So here is a chart, and I've used this before. It shows the hazard ratios for the development of coronary heart disease, right? It's a 21-year follow-up from the Women's Health Study, right? And if you look down at the bottom, you can see kind of the cholesterol information. You have your triglycerides, your non-HDL, your LDL. Look at those small little risk factors. The bigger issue is if you're type 2 diabetic, if you have metabolic syndrome, if you have hypertension, if you're obese, and if you're a smoker, right? And then if you have lipoprotein insulin resistance. Carb burner. So if you're a carb burner, you have a higher potential for having coronary heart disease. Again, like I said, my CAC score is 0, so if you haven't had a CAC score, watch my video on CAC score. I recommend it, honestly, for anybody over 40, male or female. It's reassuring. Well, it was reassuring for us because our doctors keep telling us that we're going to have a heart attack because of all the cow that we eat, and my score, like I said, is 0, which means I have, they won't say no chance, but I have a very slim chance of having a heart attack in the next 10 years. What is the driving factor that's causing us to become unhealthy at a younger and younger age? Well, besides seed oils, the sedentary behaviors, the convenience food, overconsumption of grains, I believe it's the reduction in consumption of beef. I really believe that. The most nutrient-dense food on the planet, it's actually beef liver, but the next is beef meat. So really, you stick with cow and you get every nutrient that your body needs. So if you look at this chart, this is from 1990 to 2023, and it shows you just how much, even if you just take those 2 years, the reduction in the consumption of cattle. This is ridiculous. This is what's making us sick. That's my belief anyways. So if you look at it, well, how does beef compare to other animals, right? So from 1979 to 2004, they show that the consumption of beef is down, the consumption of chicken is up, lamb is down, and fish is down. Again, I believe this is what's driving sickness, aside from the other things, the seed oils, the people playing fucking video games, having office jobs, right? Not taking care of themselves. What's the issue with veggies? Why do I have an issue with veggies? Why do I have an issue with plant-based focus? Because it's the toxins that are in the plants, right? They have natural occurring toxins. They don't want to be eaten, right? Like Dr. Anthony Chaffee says, plants are trying to kill you. And in a sense, absolutely, right? Well, they're trying to kill anything that tries to eat them or their young, right? Their seeds, their spawn, right? So I found this chart, and feel free, take a screenshot of it. The one that I generally will talk about, right, is the oxalates, right? If you look at the 1948 sorrel soup poisoning, guy had 3 bowls of sorrel soup and it killed him. He got oxalate poisoning and died. So tell me again that plants are healthy. But having oxalates reduces calcium magnesium absorption, and it is estimated that 80% of kidney stones are from oxalate poisoning. Well, oxalates are found in grains, nuts, in particular almonds. So if you're an almond flour, almond milk, almond butter junkie, you might want to quit that like now. Then there's soy, spinach, chocolate. Ooh, that's a hard one for me. That's going to be a hard one for me because I love my 90% dark chocolate. And then black tea. I really don't have black tea, but look at this chart and then you have to decide. Do you need these plants in your life when you have the potential of having these side effects? I was looking again, researching more and more because I'm trying to dig down that rabbit hole, and I came across phytoestrogens, plant-based compounds that elicit similar effects to estrogen, right, which is the female hormone. And so I got thinking, okay, so that must be why I've seen articles or comments or posts about men don't eat soy, don't drink soy milk, don't eat soybeans. Now it makes sense, right? It's not to say that they have estrogen. The response from the phytoestrogens is similar to estrogen. And so this chart, it's actually the first of 2 parts of the chart. It's too big to put on one screen to where you could actually read the damn thing, was on Dr. Axe's website. And so just be aware that these plant products can have phytoestrogens in them. Okay, oats. How long have they been pushing for us to eat oatmeal for breakfast? Right? How long? Flax seeds, right? I remember that craze wasn't too long. Chia and flax seeds, you need to have that, right? Lentils, again, phytoestrogens. Then you keep going. Apples. Oh man, that's going to upset some people, right? Carrots, coffee, sorry. Oh, that's one of the things I'm going to have to work on. Beer, bourbon, Oh, you guys will have to go to vodka and scotch. But there's different things that you want to decide, is the amount of phytoestrogens worth eating those? And you might decide yes, but just understand there is a consequence. There are some books that I recommend. They articulate far better than I could ever dream of, right? I always joke that that's why I was a math teacher and not an English teacher, because I don't articulate as well as I'm sure I can, and I am working on it. But anyways, just put that aside. So the first one is Toxic Superfoods. I think it is awesome. And it's got great information, great charts. Same thing with the great plant-based con. Again, it dispels why eating a plant-based diet won't improve your health or save the planet. And she does a really good job at explaining the whole life cycle of a cow. And then the middle one, I haven't read yet, but I want to read. Why Vegans Have Smaller Brains and How Cows Reverse Climate Change. So they did do a comparison, right, with the Maasai tribe in Africa and their neighbors. So the Maasai are carnivore, and then the neighbors are vegetarian, I believe. I don't think they were vegan. They were vegetarian. And on average, the Maasai were 5 inches taller, had 30 pounds more muscle on them, and their brains were, I believe it was 5 or 10% larger. And so there is a cost at being plant-based. It's not just all sunshine and roses, and honestly, it's not worth it. If you want to be healthy, start with cow. Make the bulk of your nutrition beef. Whether it's chuck roast, whether it's 100% beef dogs, because that's all you can afford, whether you can afford ribeye steak. Ground beef is great, right? I prefer 80-20 ground beef. Just do different seasonings on it and, slap some Mexican cheese and voila, you have taco meat. We do not need and should not be plant-based. You can look at my last video where I break down our intestinal systems and how ours is closer to resembling a carnivore than an herbivore. And if you haven't watched my videos, what are you waiting for? Come on. You got this crazy lady in her 50s bitching at you for shit. Anyways, so moral of the story. Animal proteins are superior to plant proteins, both in their bioavailability and our ability to digest them, right? Our bodies are great regulators of the amount of cholesterol that we have, no doubt, right? As beef consumption is decreased, I believe that's one of the reasons that we've become more and more unhealthy, is because people have been trying to promote and steer this bullshit of plant-based nutrition. And that's what it is, right? I can't remember what his name is. He was talking about being vegan was one step closer to being carnivore. Because once you went vegan and you realized how unhealthy you were, you'd just go straight carnivore. Look at some of the videos, right? I have yet to see a carnivore to vegan transfer, right? I've seen tons of them that are vegan to carnivore, and they talk about how much better they feel. So, anyways, I digress. Plants are trying to kill us, right? That's the famous words of Dr. Anthony Chaffee. If you haven't checked him out, I encourage you to. Again, he articulates way better than I ever could, because they contain natural toxins. Right? So why consume plant anything? And again, how many times do you hear them trying to make plants have the same texture, taste, and smell as actual meat? Really? Just eat the meat. Your body ain't fooled. Your body understands that that's got 30 chemicals in it and it's not for you and it's nasty. And if you're a man, don't consume phytoestrogen containing foods. Okay? But again, these are all just suggestions. This is my 2 cents. I am promoting animal-based nutrition. Anywhere from low carb, less than 100 grams of carbohydrates a day, all the way to carnivore, which is no grams of carbohydrates a day, which honestly, you can't get to none, because if you eat eggs, there's a little bit of carbohydrates in eggs. But with that, I hope you learned something. Please let me know if there's another topic you would love for me to cover. I'm actually quite enjoying doing the research portion of this. I mean, as I have time, I do have a day job. But with that, I wish you a blessed day.